Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the BIMvoice podcast. Today's guest is someone from United States. We finally have someone from United States. He's a BIM coordinator at DLR Group and a data enthusiast, as he calls himself. And he also has a YouTube channel where he puts videos with things he's passionate about. Welcome, Dalton Goodwin.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. I'm excited about our conversation. So,
It's really nice to have you here. Thank you for taking the time.
sure, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a BIM coordinator at DLR Group. And essentially, that's just, I'm kind of at a project level, but I also do some more, you would call it like BIM management tasks. So it's a mix between working with projects and BIM management. And that's training people working on projects, helping them, showing them how to do things, trying to find better ways to do things, developing standards and a variety of different other tasks. Um, and before that, I worked as a BIM coordinator at a smaller firm. It was a design firm. I think they were big in architecture, but they had MEP that's just like DLR, except for DLR's quite a bit bigger. And then I did pretty much the same thing. I would say my scope was maybe a little bit wider because it was just a few of us, so we did a lot of different things. And then before that, because when I was in school, I wanted to because my first job, or the one before, so I had DLR and then BSA, and then before that I worked at CRB, and that was my first job in the industry. And when I went to college, I wanted to get into a role that allowed me to see the wide range of people involved on a project, because I wanted to see everything. I wanted to see how, holistically, how does everything tie together. So I looked for firms that were multidisciplinary. They had everything in it, and I was lucky enough to get a job at CRB as pretty much they called it a BIM lead, which pretty much was a BIM coordinator. I was a lot more project oriented. It was just specifically working on projects, but I did have some overhead tasks. But what was nice was I got to work on a variety of different projects with every single discipline. We had them all in house, so I could go and talk to a structural engineer and get their input on something, an architect. And what was cool is we also had the build side, so I could go talk to a contractor or a scheduling manager or anybody really, and really see how this all comes together from like a BIM perspective on integrating technology, get their input, like, hey, does this make sense? And really just see the whole breadth of the industry, which was really, really great, especially first getting into it. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the outline of it. So
Is your company doing more MEP work or all the disciplines?
DLR Group does. We're a big architecture firm, but we have a pretty big MEP side as well. And that's part of my job, is to take care of the MEP folks from a BIM perspective, and then also the architectural people. But yeah, we have an MEP side. So.
Okay, I understand. What about your YouTube channel?
Oh yeah, my YouTube channel. It's the BIM coordinator. It it started, I think, when I was in school, 4 or 5 years ago, and when I was doing stuff in AutoCAD and Revit, I wanted to share the cool things. There was a few cool things I learned. I'm like, oh man, this is really cool, but this was really hard to figure out, and I'm sure other folks would like it. And in some instances, they did, and there was a ton of views on some of those first videos, which was really cool. But I was more or less doing it, and I think still I am doing it because I wanted to really learn the information, and by recording it, putting a video together. It helps me kind of really retain that information, especially if I could always just go back to it in case I forget. But also, hopefully helping some people. I know like the struggle of if you can't find, like, sometimes it's like I don't even know the right questions or the right things to do. And there's been so many things like free, YouTube videos and LinkedIn Learning and a variety of other resources that I've used. And I just wanted to kind of give back a little bit. But yep.
But what else? What kind of topics are you approaching aside of AutoCAD and Revit?
Well, I try to do a little bit about machine learning when I can. That topic is pretty complex, and so I've been learning a lot and trying to share what I find out. Dynamo, I did a little bit of Bluebeam, but recently I kind of switched my focus. I didn't want to do Revit videos anymore, or Bluebeam, or Navisworks, or AutoCAD. I really like Navis and Revit, but I was like, I wasn't getting a lot of benefit out of that, and there's a lot of other resources out there that cover those topics, and so I wanted to focus on something fun for me, and just knew it seemed to be, topics that aren't being talked about a lot. So like data analytics, I do a little bit of Dynamo, but I still want to, I rather focus on like working with Forge and extracting the data from that platform, and then using that data to learn from and to find correlations with other data. And so I've been trying to focus more uh, along that route and programming, and stuff like that, and kind of moving away from the Autodesk, you know, suite of tools, and focus more on just general data ideas and learning from information. So.
Yeah, I see. We'll come later back to machine learning, but now let's go a little bit to the bones of this podcast. What is your definition of BIM?
Definition of BIM.
Yes, what is BIM for you?
Information. I mean, for me, um, that's all it really is. It's just information. And a huge focus on me is leveraging the data behind BIM. I mean, there's so much of it, and every day, in every project, there's all this information that's generated, and it's all data. And BIM is a part of that, and it's just data. And what I try to focus in that is, well, where in this project can I leverage BIM in a better way, but also can we learn from this data so we can make better decisions in the future and currently. So.
Interesting. What do you think about how that data is captured today by construction companies? Do we, like you mentioned, you said it's information, we have lots of data, and I'm very aware about that, but I'm also very aware that we capture very, very little of that data, and we are not talking about leveraging it, but capturing it in the best possible format.
Yeah, what's cool is there's tools out there now that kind of lower the barrier to entry and allow you to extract data at unstructured or whatever. You can get it now, and it's not that difficult to set up that ecosystem. Um, I would still, it's still complicated, and a good step forward is talking with some consultants that are in that just they know that realm really well, because there's a lot of moving pieces. But I think when firms look at the benefit of extracting that data and maybe getting it to a data warehouse or like a data lake or something, so they can start to leverage it for predictions or for dashboards. I mean, there's a whole wide range of things that you'll start to get a benefit from. But I mean, all that information is there. It's just a matter of getting it together, which isn't, I mean, like, you don't even have to hire a consultant to start doing that. You could do that now. I mean, Dynamo is a tool that you can use between. I mean, you can use that for Navisworks, Revit. You can use Python for practically anything else. I mean, you can scrape PDFs. I mean, you could do that right now, and any other thing yourself without even talking to anybody. So the tools are there, and there's ways to get it so that you can start to leverage it. It's just a matter of like, hey, this is important. And sometimes like in my role, I have to like prove that. Sometimes it's like, all right, well, like Navisworks, let's, and for me, it's really important. Like, I want to know that there's a value behind this tool. I don't want to just use it because every other MEP engineering firm uses it. I want to use it because there's an actual practical reason. There's a real ROI. And so like tracking Navisworks is a really big thing for me because I can start to understand what truly causes clashes. If we generate enough data, can we just prevent them entirely? Because we can see what they before and after somebody resolves a clash. How did they change that duct or whatever? We can start to find correlations in RFIs. Like, what is this sector more? Is this sector? Why do they get more? Or this team, why do they get more? Start to really find those things and pinpoint the reasons behind why we would, get so many clashes or so many RFIs or change orders, and start to identify those things and reduce them or try to make more or better decisions or more proactive ones. So I think it's really powerful to start to extract the data and get it somewhere, and then show people, hey, there's a great benefit to knowing
I
that.
understand this, but at the same time, how many around you are aware about this, or are willing to listen to this, or are doing this, or are harvesting data and trying to figure out ways? Like, you think like what you tell me sounds really exciting, but what is the reality? Do you have many connections in your network that do this? Is this the norm in United States or in your network?
Well, in the United States or anywhere else, I'm not sure. I only work at DLR, and I have conversations with contractors and other folks, and I've seen what like some of the big firms do, like Gensler and Bechtel and some of those, and I know they have. I've noticed a rise in because every once in a while, what I'll do is I'll search for just jobs. Not that I'm looking for one, but I want to see what's out there, and I've noticed a growth of, like they'll look for Power BI, or dashboard people just to create dashboards. I can't remember what company it was, DPR or somebody, but they were hiring like 8 like people just to create dashboards. And there's been some that are hiring senior data analysts. I know Bechtel already has, folks over in their department. Gensler is doing a lot with it. I mean, there's a definitely rising interest in it. We a DLR group, we were looking to hire some folks as well, and still are. After all this stuff rolls over, we're looking to hire some people, and what's really cool, and I didn't get this at some of my other firms that I worked for, but this one, we have an incredible culture that embraces technology, and we have a wide range of people that are interested. And like, we don't put up barriers. It's not, you can't use Power BI because you have to be, this person. Anybody is welcome to do it, which is great because now we have a wide range of people that are using Power. Like, we have engineers, architects, structural engineers, just everybody that we have planners that are using Power BI. They know how to work with data, and we have so many of them, so many folks, which is just so cool to me. Like, I don't know what that is. I don't directly work in other firms, but I would be interested to know if they're having, having that much adoption, because currently, at least the firm that I work for, we're putting a very big focus on data. And obviously there's a lot of things that can be improved, but it's like, I don't care. It's like we're moving in a good direction, it seems like, and I'm just really excited, and I'm a big believer in showing, like, share those things. If you did some cool stuff, share it, and we do that all the time, and we've been getting some really great growth out of it. I mean, there's folks just picking up Python, trying to learn it, because they know the benefits of understanding that language. And we have a ton of Power BI users, and currently we're working on developing a data warehouse, extracting and getting all the information together. And we already know, like, how to extract from those siloed databases. So now we're just going to get a data warehouse to kind of bring that information together, and then open that up to anybody to start to build dashboards or prediction models or whatever they want. But yeah, there's definitely a rise in interest. So, I would imagine it's going to keep growing. So.
But is that change actually happening, or it's a little bit too much buzz about it and actually not happening as you would like to happen? Are you happy with the adoption speed of what the new things happening in our industry?
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with at least the firm that I work for. I think we're doing some great things, but it's not going to be quick. And I'm sure, it could always be better, but it, people are learning, and they're seeing the benefits, and it's only natural that we're going to move in this direction. How quick, I don't know. I mean, anything could be faster. I mean, I would like, it would be cool if it was quicker. But it is what it is, and that's why I try to share information and try to get it out there and say, hey, this is just, like, you could do some really powerful stuff if you knew this, and the data's there, so you can. And that's why I've been working on, like, trying to develop some type of platform that can start to extract data and put it somewhere, because there's a great benefit in understanding that information. And folks, I mean, they're moving in that direction. It's only a matter of time before you'll see every single firm, doing the same thing, or at least hiring some type of consultant or using some type of tool, whatever, to start to do that. But yeah, I mean, like, the firm that I work for, we're not incredibly big. I would say we're a big firm. I think we're about 1,200 people, but we're not, Bechtel or some of those other ones. And we're working pretty heavily with, developing our data warehouse, working with our different, developing a variety of dashboards, and doing a lot of things. Adoption within the firm has been great, and I know the other big firms that we communicate with are doing the same thing. They're developing the same stuff. So there's definitely a rise, and I don't actually see a lot of conversations around those topics on LinkedIn, or anything like that, but it is, at least within the actual firms, is happening. As for folks sharing that, not so much. But I would imagine naturally, if firms are doing it and they're obviously getting practical use, like, we get practical use from having a dashboard that tells us the information that's in our models or whatever. And so naturally, I think it's going to move in that direction. We have a huge focus, at least in the BIM perspective, on data. It's only a natural progression that we'll start to, almost look at that information and use that information in a way that a data scientist or data analytics person would. So
I understand. Aren't we maybe a little bit privileged to be in this category of designers? Because here I think it's possible that it's happening a little bit more things, like we maybe from from all the groups in the supply chain, designers, asset owners, constructors. Maybe the designers are the ones trying first newer technologies and most advanced things. And now where I want to get back to, it's like BIM, it's supposed to be like a collaborative effort, right? Imply like taking together, putting together everybody to make a workflow, seamless workflow, right? To get the best out of the information we harvest and we use, right? How do we do with the other ones? Are they keeping the pace with the designers? Are they as well educated as the designers?
The contractors and subs and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's I've seen some incredible and worked with some incredible contractors. I know a lot of stuff. You know, DPR, Mortensen, Lindlease. You know, there's a lot of firms that know some really. You know, currently we're working, or one of the projects I'm working on is with McCarthy. There's, you know, um, they're looking into some amazing things, and reading some of their posts and looking at some of their jobs they're looking for. I mean, there's a they seem to be focusing on a lot of things as well. You know, and I don't know if, you know, one's innovating more than the other one, but I definitely I don't know, because I mean, there's amazing technologies that come from the contractor side. There seems to be a focus on artificial intelligence and using robotics and robots and rovers and all sorts of things and machines that will automate. I mean, what's interesting is they have an incredibly complex environment. It's always moving, it's always changing. Where maybe on the designer side, it's a little bit, you know, if anything, a little bit easier. Um, at least when it comes to automation and implementing those technologies in a real way. You know, on a contractor side and working in the field, and when it comes to actually putting, you know, the materials down, it can be incredibly complex. And you know, and technology it could get pretty complicated, especially when you start to look at like robotics and automatically doing things. It's so there may be a slower innovation just because the technology to really to get practical use out of is just not realistic currently. But I definitely see on the contractor side, again, like Albaresi's, they're a great firm here, and they do amazing stuff, and they hire some of they had I don't know what their structure is now, but they had like some of the best BIM people, and you know, so I think it's a balance, and we'll see it go, you know, in between. I'm sure contractors will start to innovate at a faster pace, or, you know, and slower. So yeah.
Yes, but what about the asset owners, the customers? Uh, I think they lag really behind of these groups. When like this is what I understand after all these the previous episodes, I got to this conclusion for the talking with the other guests. Um, like we are innovative, constructors are innovative, not so much the asset owners. I don't know how much they are informed. They are even informed about this, and how much they do, because like it's perfectly fine that we are doing fine as designers and constructors, but let's not just forget that to get like the most important thing is the life cycle of the building, right? Including the design phase, constructing phase, and after that using and maintaining, which is the longest part. They are the ones. What I see happening today, like yes, we deliver good models, like designers, we deliver good information. The constructors as well, they do fine. But when the asset owners get that data, they don't do much with it. They like what I'm trying, like to be more specific, like they get drawings, okay, most of them, because of the regulations, because of the technology, because of the education, because of various reasons, they get drawings. Doesn't matter how effective you design the building and you build it,
Hmm.
the longest part span of that building is going to be used to a very low potential of actually how you could use it if you get the right data when you should get it from the start.
Yeah. So customers, they, I think it's kind of on us to educate, and show them, hey, there's a great benefit in understanding how your building operates, especially, for feels, if you're going to do any modifications to this building or future buildings, then understanding how it operates is incredibly important, and taking that information and storing it. And so, and what's interesting, and maybe there's a lot of technology that goes into building operations and on IoT and stuff, and sometimes firms aren't suited very well to start to talk about that and show the benefit. But so there's a balance of, like, innovating within the industry to get firms to understand the value, and then also to start to show clients, hey, there's a incredible value behind these technologies, and understanding how your building operates, how how the spaces are used. And we have, within DLR, we have a building operations sector, our market, and we're working with clients that understand the importance of data and understanding their building. So, and sometimes that's actually driven from the clients. I mean, we have clients asking for that, and for us, it's like, all right, this is a great project to start to learn. Like, we need to learn, as much as we can, and we try to find clients that are willing to do that with us. And I think that's a portion of it, is like, if you're not in that sector, you gotta start, because buildings, truly understanding how a building impacts the environment, how it impacts the people that use it, is incredibly important for future projects and the life of that building. And so, it's a balance of innovating and communicating with the client, and understanding their needs, and showing them there's an incredible value with the technology. But yeah, I mean, there's clients that are super old school, especially like really, really big ones. It's like, hey, this is what we've done, the last 100 years. It's like,
2000
yeah.
2000 years.
Yeah, yeah, that's how I was gonna. Yeah, so, like, we've been doing it since the beginning of time, this one way, and yeah, there's a big issue with that, and and you can only do so much from our end, but it's like, okay, you know, um, but I think it's worth talking about, other than just saying, hey, okay, yeah, that's fine. It's like, well, there might be a better way for you to manage this facility, if you start to see that there's other options. But yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of education that has to go on, and a lot of
Exactly,
innovation. Yeah.
exactly, because it doesn't matter. You can spam them with everything, but if you don't have the right people that are willing to listen to other possibilities, then it's just like hitting a wall, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And we go back to something that you mentioned a little bit about, that the companies don't really disclose everything or most of what they do, right? So, like, to get to a higher level in anything, it's much easier if you cooperate, right? If everybody plays together. But and as long as everybody is willing to claw on that piece of thing that they think they are ahead. And this is not valid only between designers. This is valid also between these other actors in the supply chain, right? Because this is I see this as the biggest problem. the communication between the different actors is just not there. We hang too much on I don't know, on our way of doing things maybe, and not focusing on the big picture, right? To work as a team. We work as a team at a company level, right? But we don't really work as a team like for the sake of the project, not only for to design and build the project, but for the whole life cycle of the project, right? Uh, does this sound crazy to you? I'm just
No, no, not at all. It's funny because even within the same company, there can be a lack of communication and integration between tools and people. I've seen I've seen, architects and engineers, they work in the same firm, which the idea is that, in a one house, like a one solution, like this is, we're going to integrate and kind of, you know, reduce a lot of that, a lack of communication, a lot of those issues that arise from that, and working with opposite, companies or separate, consulting companies, and yet, you'll still see it like internally. So it's a culture thing, and it's just like we, communicating and making sure our tools are integrated in a smart way. Is incredibly important. But yeah, I mean, I think there's an issue sometimes, and some of the different contract types. I think IPD, some of those, which I think they make a little bit. They kind of address that issue a little bit. I think on the few projects that I'm working on that are IPT.
sorry for interrupting. IPT or IPD? Or there are two different?
IPD, yeah.
Okay. Can you
Yeah.
please also say what that does that mean? Integrated project
Integrated
delivery?
project delivery, yeah. Yeah, so just and it's one of our it's actually the first one I'm on. So we're working directly, so it's integrating the team, but we're working directly, while we're designing with the contractor and stuff. And so I think there's and we're having meetings and conversations and that's going to be different depending on the contractor that you work with, and the design firm that you work with. But it's coming. It seems to be addressing some of those issues. And there still needs to be a lot of communication with the client as well. So yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be issues between that. And I think there's a lot of tools that are trying to address that, but sometimes it's just a cultural thing that you have to kind of create. So.
Yeah, we are people. We don't like to keep things simpler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we don't give up easy on our beliefs, and yeah, sometimes we make things more complicated than necessary. Regarding IPDs, you like from how you say it, it's not very used. It's something like your company or no, like the asset owners in the States are trying to use now. It's something newer, right? Or it's been used at a larger scale.
It seems to be newer. I haven't been on a lot of projects like that. Usually it's design build or something. I mean, when I worked at CRB, which was the one they called themselves like a one solution. You go there, you can get your whole building built, but so they were pretty integrated. But as for like these, where we're a design firm and integrating with the contractor, I would say. I know design build, that's a big one. But these IPD, I haven't been on a lot of projects. I don't know if that's more anecdotal, but I don't know if that speaks to the entire industry. But I mean, I've noticed at least an increase within the firm, but I do think there's a great benefit behind it. But I don't know a ton about the contractual stuff that's involved with that. because I'm sure there's a lot of benefits, pros and cons between that or design build or another approach. So
Yeah, but this, at least some of the benefits, me neither. I'm not very familiar with the contracts. I don't work with contracts as well. I'm trying to learn more to understand better how things are working and why do they work this way. But I've seen some interest here in Norway. People start talking about this kind of contract, and I think I'm not sure if they tried or they are willing to try it on some projects. What would be the advantages over the traditional way of contracting?
I think traditional like design bid build is, it separates the design and build companies, and I think design build integrates it a little bit more. But I think what IPD does is integrates it, but also shares the risk. So it's so everybody is looking to be successful within the project, leverage technology, or try to be as efficient as possible, and share information with one another. Um, so I don't know. I'm sure there's reasons to not choose it. Um, and I mean, I think it's the project I'm working on now. I think it's been cool just to work, have those conversations with the contractor and really get their input and see how their process is. And I think they've worked on a lot of other IPDs. So it's been really great to kind of see that process, and it seems like this is going to be a good project. So, but yeah, I mean, from what I can tell, it increases the communication between the parties, just because I think we're sharing risk a little bit more than what we would if we were more traditional design build or design bid build or so. Yeah.
Isn't the asset owner involved at all in this project? It's only the contractor with the designer.
Well, the client should be involved at some point. I don't see them. I haven't spoken with them. I'm sure there's conversations, and they should be involved. Um, there should be some conversations that they're involved with. If anything, I can't speak to if they are not happening, because I just haven't had any conversations with them. Now we've had projects, and I think these were more traditional in the sense that they were we weren't inviting the contractor on board immediately, and clients were like and they were heavily involved. They were, I mean, in every meeting, and we had meetings like all the time, and it was like never enough. And we had they were even in the clash meetings and stuff. And and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's kind of a headache. But yeah, I mean, um, I'm sure there's a lot of conversations happening, and I'm sure clients could be more involved. But yeah, so well, and speaking to clients in adopting technology, something that's interesting is in the contracts or in some of the proposals and stuff, or RFIs, or can't remember what they're called. But the clients are asking for some of these technologies. They're expecting them. And sometimes that's like, and we're a big firm, so sometimes some teams aren't too familiar with those tools or technologies. And when a firm comes to them, or a client comes to them and says, "Hey, this is what we expect," it's like, all right, well, we need to get with somebody and figure out what that's about. So the interesting thing is clients are, they're seeing the value behind a lot of this stuff and technology and trying to get more involved. I'm sure, again, that's more anecdotal, and hopefully more people see the value. But I can't speak to if that's a norm on, for the rest of the world. But so.
Yeah, I understand. We talk a little bit about IPDs. Can you very briefly say how does this contract works? What are the some a very brief description about them?
Well, I can't speak to it a lot. This is one of our first projects, but essentially, I mean, you're integrating the parties almost at the beginning of the project, and they share risk involved on the project.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by sharing the risk?
I think if a firm loses money over communication or losing, like we're there to try to benefit one another to optimize the efficiency of the project. Because if we can save money for the client together, I think the reward for stuff like that is kind of divided up between everybody. But so there's a big and I think some of the cons to that contract is that if you're working with firms that aren't that great and they're losing money and causing you to lose money, then there's some issues with that contract where I think in design bid build it separates those contracts a little bit more and um, you can there's no contract tying you guys together. Then again, I can't speak to this a whole lot. I'm not a contractual person. This is our first project as well. But I do recommend Jim Rogers' course on LinkedIn Learning. He actually talks a ton about that. He has a lot of great content, and that's what I use to go and kind of learn about it. But again, I'm still so some of the first projects and I'm sure I think the contractual type is really great when you have two great or like great contractors and great design people and stuff but yeah.
And asset owners and client that understands
Yeah.
why they want to use that and people that can manage that contract, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good enough. Very good description. Like I said, I'm not a contract expert, so I assume not many of the listeners will be. So
Yeah, it can get complex, especially like I worked on some contract stuff when we tried to include like a clash detection stuff, and it just ended up being so complex because we wanted to say things and didn't want to say certain things, and there's just so much of that that's involved on a project, and sometimes I think we forget about it because I've worked with people that totally disregard the contract, and I'm like, well, man, we gotta kind of stick to that because that's what we agreed to, and we can't just start doing things our own way or outside of that. So there's definitely an importance of it and understanding them a little bit, but there's a lot of complexity with them, especially depending on the project type and stuff. So
yeah. Do you have a BIM strategy in your company?
yeah, like a BIM process for projects and
No,
everything.
like a BIM strategy, like how to use BIM or how to have this mindset on every project, like a general high order strategy, not a project strategy.
Yeah, so we try to implement BIM in every project where it makes sense, and like in that being like the BIM execution plan and planning for these things and um, um, uh, um, just preparing for projects. In some instances, we will not, we won't do a BIMX plan or anything like that. We'll still leverage BIM in the sense that we're using data and we're using creating models and everything else, but we're um, sometimes we don't go about that, especially if the project's like a week long. Like we have projects that are like that. Sometimes we start to integrate all those technologies, it makes it way more complex than what it needs to be. But yeah, we have, we try to implement BIM in every project. We try to leverage the tools, clash detection on or at least every engineering project. Um, we try to, we'll talk about all the variety of all the different technologies. The idea is that we need to sit down and have that conversation every single project inside, or at least mostly every single project. So yeah, and we're still developing a lot of stuff, standards and processes. We've grown the team dramatically within the last year or so, which is exciting compared to what it was before. So there's a lot of new folks and a lot of new ideas, which is really awesome. And we're developing a lot of new processes and tools and different things. So, but we're pretty heavily invested in BIM and the idea behind it. So, and technology in general. So
Yeah, that your management, the management in your company understands the value in this. So was actually the question. If this is understood at all the levels in the company, and if this is approved and encouraged to do.
well, yeah, leadership's on board with all of it, and they ask real questions. I mean, they're not, you know, they're not getting blindsided by the technology. They truly understand it, so they'll ask real questions on how to implement it, or you know, what's involved with the process, and but yeah, leadership's they're definitely on board with all of it, and they understand it, which is the great thing. I mean, it's my leadership. What's really awesome, and you know, not to the rest of the firm, but like to our BIM leadership, we have some of the best people in the industry, and what's awesome is we got guys that know things that, you know, like at a leadership level, you would think, well, I mean, they know things at a very, you know, if they were still a BIM coordinator, they would, you know, they would know just as much as them. And that's great because they know the ins and outs of the tools, they know the technology behind it, and they know holistically how this ties together. And then they communicate that with the rest of the leadership who also understand the value behind this. And so we invest very heavily in technology. Everybody understands the value. And I think that's part of the culture as well, and kind of why there's a huge adoption in like Power BI and all these different technologies, you know, VR, and you know, just a variety of different things. We adopt those, in my opinion, incredibly quick, and it obviously could always be better. But I feel like our culture is great. I mean, I was listening to somebody, it was IMEG, and they were talking about their Dynamo group. Which I thought was, and they seem to have incredible success with their group. But I kind of thought like that size of company, you would have a ton of Dynamo people. Like especially if you have like, I think it was 12 or 1,300 people, and they were saying their department was only like 3 or 4. I'm like, well, shoot, dude, we have like our department, like we don't even have a department. We just like, we have people like structural people that are developing scripts. We have like 100 different people that are developing these things, and you know, there's not a sole department. Now we do have a process in place to try to standardize those things, but yeah, I mean, our culture just embraces technology, and I'm seeing that across the industry as well. I mean, there's a lot of firms that are doing that incredibly well, and their entire company would be, you know, they're innovating, and they're adapt to technology, and integrating new technology into their processes. So
I see. Um, you mentioned your company grew. You got more colleagues. Are we talking only about engineers, like building engineers, civil engineers, or did you hire also programmers to focus on that part as well?
like programmers, like software programmers, or
Yeah, maybe that, and maybe data analysts, or what kind of jobs are those for the data visualization?
yeah, for data and stuff, we have, you know, I mentioned a big focus on Power BI, and so we have a lot of dashboard developers. You know, that's mostly people doing it for fun, or you know, it's not just for fun, but they're doing it to be so that they can leverage the data that they have on hand in a practical way with their clients or internally with themselves. Um, And so people will so we have a variety of folks that are doing that, and anybody's welcome to do that, which is awesome within the firm. And then we've hired, I think I mentioned maybe at some point, the hiring a data scientist. So we want to hire, and I think at some point the idea is to maybe get a team or at least hire a consultant, or find if we can, find a consultant that can kind of help us out with that. But so a data scientist, I know we hired one at some point, but with everything going on, I think it wasn't working out. And so after everything kind of calms down with the economy and this pandemic, um, um, they're looking to hire some other folks. We do, and on a kind of separate from that, we are looking at programmers, um, just folks that can build some of the miscellaneous tools that we need. So a few programmers here and there, and we look at that internally. So if we can find folks that can do it internally, but yeah, I mean, we're looking to build a data analytics team. And to start with, it was we're going to look for a data scientist, and then or a data analytics person. Um, and for programming, just general programming stuff, we're looking to build a team for that as well. But yeah, I mean, it couldn't be possible if it wasn't for the culture that embraces that. I mean, it wouldn't be practical either if we weren't already leveraging data in a real way, and our teams across the entire company are leveraging these tools in a real and practical way. And they're getting better every day at doing that. And what's cool is I mentioned the data warehouse, and as soon as we get a lot of that developed, then folks are going to start to leverage. They can start to grab that data a lot easier, and they can also start to tie it with other data to start to find correlations between information. So
I see. But what do you mean by data warehouse? A server with data from all the projects?
it's pretty much a collection of all the siloed data. So we have a SQL server that already has all the like Revit models. So it's a matter of pulling all that information together, structuring it, and pulling in a data warehouse. Generally, that information is structured. So you bring it in, it's structured information that you can then pull out and use in dashboards. So it's pretty much you're moving data from all these different silos into one location that you can pull out and start to extract from it. And it's structured information. There's and so it's incredibly useful when you're trying to um, um, you know um, just build a dashboard or whatever. I mean, all the data that you would want is there. There's a whole bunch of different things and methods that you could use. The tool that I'm looking at trying to develop, or the ecosystem, is I'm trying to do it in more in with unstructured, like an unstructured database, which would, I think, generally be called like a data lake, because that's more for like unstructured data. And so like the program I'm looking at trying to do is extract a bunch of files and a variety of different other, data, and then pull it into an unstructured database that then can be pulled out into dashboards or machine learning models and all sorts of stuff. It can get really complicated, but so there's a lot involved. But simply put, data warehouse is just moving, from siloed data to to one location, so people can pull out that information and start to learn from it.
Can you mention the software you are using, or it's secret?
The software
For the lake, for the data lake.
Yeah, I can't. Well, we don't have a data lake. We have a data warehouse. We're looking at eventually getting a data lake. But for the data warehouse, I tell you the truth, I can't remember. It's some type of relational database, so like a SQL. I think it was Microsoft SQL something. I mean, the technology isn't like that crazy. It's not. It's data warehouses have been around for like ever. So, but it's more or less just moving it into some type of relational database. So some type of SQL server, but I can't remember the exact one. It was Microsoft something. So, but yeah, it's so.
Yeah. What kind of software or softwares are you using in generally at your work?
Um, so Revit, we're fully Revit, or at least mostly. We have some teams, some of their landscape folks are migrating to Revit currently, but so Revit's a big one. We use Enscape for VR and stuff. We use Bluebeam, for PDFs. We use Navisworks, which about a year ago we didn't have it, and one of my first jobs was trying to integrate Navisworks into our firm, and so we're using Navisworks now, and seems to be getting good adoption. So um, we use Power BI. That's probably our main dashboard tool. And Dynamo, we use that. Grasshopper, Rhino. I mean, we practically almost. I'm sure there's a lot more that I haven't said, but we practically use everything. I mean, if there's a tool, we have tools specific to building operations that we use. But like we have a variety of different things. But I'm sure like what's cool is like obviously we don't want to like recreate the wheel every single time, but what we want to do is still embrace technology and have a culture of like if you can use this in a practical way, then do it. And so I'm sure there's instances where folks are finding a technology, using it, and then finding that we have something in place, but that's part of it too. Like we built some Dynamo scripts to automate some things, and then we found out we had a tool that did exactly that, or a department that focused on that, and which is nice that we can innovate, and it's very transparent with our tools and what we can use, because it does open up those conversations that point us in the right directions. But yeah.
So, what exactly can you do? Like some simple explanation for this. What exactly can you do with Power BI? Like, for example, to take data from a model, from a 3D model, from a project, right?
Yeah, you can dump out. I can't remember what the format is, but you can dump out a Revit model into essentially a database, and you can take that data and put it into Power BI. We don't do that because we use Imaginate Clarity, and we can extract all the data and then store it in a SQL server. And then from there, we can, extract that information into a Power BI. And so we can get an idea of, what's an example. We can look at every single model for a specific sector and then understand what's typical in their model and then optimize our template based off of that information. So if we see that they're loading in this whatever every single time, then let's put that into the template. Or like if you're a firm that only has one template for like the architecture team, but you have separate sectors, so maybe what you can do is start, is use that data to extract and learn what's going into those projects, what families and what things are changing, and then you can create optimized templates for it. You can proactively learn, about projects by trying to find correlations between profits and other variables. The building, how many team members, was it an integrated design? Um, so there's a lot of benefit, and in some instances it's like I think for like planning, some of the planning folks, I can't remember what they did exactly, but what they could do is look at a bunch of spaces and understand their usability and how many folks can occupy that space, and then they represent that information in a dashboard. so that when they show it to a client, it's incredibly easy to understand. So there's a variety of different uses internally and externally when you start to leverage that information. And it takes small steps. I mean, we're not going to be pros at it, at first, and that's why we're we've done trainings and all sorts of things, which has been great. Again, our leadership knows the value, so we've hired, we've gotten trainers to help us get better at doing that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it's been great seeing the adoption and seeing folks leverage those tools. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things that you can use them for. So.
Yeah, sure. Did you use Tableau at all?
No, I'm going to look into it and use it myself. I don't know. It's funny because I have like an interest of like doing things that nobody else is doing, and it makes it also incredibly hard at doing too. But to me, it's a lot of fun because I'm like, I want to do something different, even if it's, it doesn't mean I'm still pro for like Power BI. I love it. I think it's a great tool, but I'm like, it doesn't interest me that much. I'd rather, try something new. And so I'm hugely involved. Like I try to learn as much as I can on Python, and you can do a lot of cool stuff in Python with Plotly, some of those libraries like Seaborn and Matplotlib. You can start to plot that information and learn from it. So I'll develop a lot of Jupyter notebooks and stuff, which is just representing the code with some visuals and stuff, and you can run them in blocks. And so it's really easy for folks to understand. And I like to build things like that. I don't find Power BI to be a lot of fun, but for that tool I mentioned, and I haven't. I'm starting to really research it, but what I'm trying to do is extract information from a variety of resources, store that information, and then have dashboards tied to it. And I was going to look at like Tableau and see about that, because I think they have a free version up to certain things. I can't remember exactly. Either way, if it's not Tableau, then I more or less want to look for tools that are open source and free.
Yeah, and something more advanced, maybe.
Well, advanced and something. Oh, I think simplicity is awesome. I mean, I think naturally everything gets easier, but I'm a big fan of open source, and just because if I'm going to build something, then I want it to anybody that can do it. Sometimes the open source stuff is sometimes a lot more complex and not in a good way, and so, but yeah, I mean, I always get myself stuck in trying to learn new things that nobody else has done, and it gives me a lot of headaches sometimes, but it's a lot of fun.
Then it's too bad that you are working in an industry where the proprietary software is king.
The what?
The software,
Yeah.
it's proprietary. Every software you are using, it's proprietary, right? Revit, AutoCAD, everything, Navisworks. Like we don't have open source in building industry, in construction industry.
Oh my God, no! Like nothing. Like there isn't, and anything that is open source is like very unusable.
I know.
It would set us back like so many years, and it just isn't practical, any of it. But yeah, like everything is, and it's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. Like if you wanted to, like if you weren't in school but you were a programmer, or maybe something totally different, you wanted to start to learn those tools, like you'd have to get the trial, and after that you got to start paying for it, unless you have a edu or whatever email.
Yeah.
Have to pay for those tools. It's like, man, it's like that isn't very inviting to the industry. It's like, I don't want to do that. Like, and it's expensive, and they raise the prices all the time, and it just to me, it's, and I've asked, like, what happens if they just stop? Like, just as a hypothetical, what if they just don't? What if they say, nope, we're not going to share this with you anymore. This Revit is ours. Because and this is really crazy. But I feel like it's possible. But if and if you look at some of the jobs that are out there for Autodesk, they're hiring a lot of machine learning specialists and AI people. Um, and those people aren't cheap, and they're trying to look for, folks with like 8 or 10 years experience that understand. And then there's some of the descriptions we're talking about, like, yeah, we get to peek into all these industries and really learn how they work. And so we can start to extract that data from models. We can see how a model progresses. And I'm like, what? Where are you getting that data? If they can acquire that kind of information, and this might sound crazy to a lot of people, but if they can acquire that kind of data, eventually, especially since they own those software tools, so they develop, they acquire all this information, and they understand, because it's not little. I mean, you're talking about practically every firm is using Revit. I mean, and or at least within North America. And but if they if they can acquire all the data from all these different buildings and all these different models and all these different people and how they're working on these projects, they could essentially start to understand a sector at a architect's level. Like, they could truly understand it from a machine, though, and then develop, like, okay, like, and at that point they could hire some architects. They could sit down with the client. They could program out their space, understand their usage and all that kind of stuff, and then dump that into a computer that has all that historic data, and then develop a project automatically. And they become the AEC tech company. And they're like, well, we're not going to let you use Revit anymore because you're a competitor now. Like, that's totally, it sounds crazy, but at the same point, it's like, data is king. And if they have all the data and they have that information, then, compare me, the firm that I work for, to a Bechtel or somebody else. If the amount of data they generate. Now, that's where specialization, I think, is important, because we specialize, we focus really heavily in the K-12 area, but which gives us an advantage when it comes to that data. But if Autodesk or some of those, if they're extracting that information, and I'm not sure how they are or what data they have, but if they are, then, man, they have unlimited potential with it. I mean, they could do anything they wanted at that point. But I don't know. We'll see, I guess, in the future what happens.
And they have the money. I don't know
Yeah.
if you check the revenue of Autodesk. You should take a look. You'll get dizzy.
Well, that's why they hired, why they, when I was on the job things, looking at some of those, they had like it was like 6 or 8 different machine learning data scientists and AI specialists. There may have been more, but it's like, man, you're like, that's not cheap. Those types of people are not cheap, especially the experience they were looking for, because they wanted somebody that understood the industry, but also had like 8 or 10 years in deep learning and artificial intelligence, which generally requires like a doctorate or something. And then also understanding construction and stuff and all these other things. It's like, wow, man, like, that's not cheap, and they've got money to invest in it. And yeah, I mean, if they can definitely start to become a player in it, because they have the data. What's stopping them?
Yeah, well, that is not good. That is not bad for our industry. It's good because we will progress quicker, but we will have monopoly then.
Well, if they open source and share it, that would be awesome.
Open source? Are you kidding me? A trial period, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But I wish they would open source. Or, I mean, I just don't see them, like, if they, like, it's really crazy to think, but if they have the data, they could essentially then now rule the market. They could rule it because they have historic data from every single architect and every single engineer. And so that's, I mean, I'm a big, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that's very, very far off. But again, I'm a big believer in open source, because I just feel like anybody should be welcome to jump into the industry and start to leverage the technology. And mostly people are just paying for services. It's,
Yeah,
but the tools themselves are free.
I completely agree with that. Unfortunately, they seem too big to fail right now. And
Yeah.
like the competition, it's non-existent, like you said, or it's light years behind.
Yeah.
I like potential competition, what I see right now, but it might not even happen, never. Something like Blender, they started getting more money, they become quite big, and something like Unreal Engine, they got also very rich. But I still think they are fading compared to Autodesk. But I maybe a software like Blender, because they would have the capital, if they would like to go this way, in a way, Blender 3D.
Yeah, I briefly messed with it.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I don't use it that much,
But
but
I heard about like it's quite used by architects and engineers for visualization, right? And Unreal 3D as well.
is it open source or it's
Yes,
free,
yes,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
okay, yeah.
free, it's open source, and Unreal Engine as well. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe there will be something.
I think with an integration of like the programming industry and all that, with like everything, like Python, totally free, and you can do practically anything with it.
I know, I know. I love this a lot about the IT industry. I know. I This is a big pain for me. The same. I feel like we are on the same page regarding
I'm
this.
hoping with like integrating, like folks will see that there's a great benefit and start to move that direction. But if anything, I think there needs to be like a really, really great tool, because people aren't going to move that direction if there's not a great and practical tool.
Nah, man. I don't say. Unfortunately, I'm an optimistic guy, but like, look, Microsoft, Autodesk, it's Microsoft of the AAC industry, and yeah, they are going. They are smart, like you say, like doing what they do right now. I was not aware about this. They are doing exactly the smartest things they could do right now to hire machine learning people in AI.
Oh yeah, you got to look at the some of the openings there and the descriptions on them. It's crazy, and it makes you think like, what kind of things can they do with that information. I don't know. I would love to see the data and see like what's behind it. Like what are you tracking? Because the first thing I thought when I started using BIM 360 was like the all the inputs that you have to put in just to get the project started, and you're hosting you're hosting the information up there, and I know you can make like API requests, so I know they have to be storing it, but I'm sure there's something in small writing that says, hey, we own all the data that you put up here. So yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's try to see the positive things.
yeah.
I don't I don't see how what else we could do. Like this, like you see these other softwares. I don't know, maybe BriskCAD. BriskCAD maybe is an open source or a cheap, very cheap kind of 3D modeling software around $100. I'm not sure, but or FreeCAD, it's something. But yeah, it's difficult for someone to invest a lot of time and to compete a software with Revit where you have uh, 20 years
Yeah.
working with it, and the team, very well paid team of developers, right? How do you cannot
Oh
compete with
yeah.
that.
And we're such an old industry, and innovation. Like we're just now, it seems like, embracing innovation, and to come in and be like, all right, so we're gonna move in this direction now. Like that would be incredibly hard to do. I think, to get all the architects and folks.
Yeah, I think only what would be possible would be if a big company with big money, someone like Google or Apple or like Amazon or Tesla or even Tesla maybe would come in our industry and become a disruptor. That would be a possibility, but I don't think they would focus only on a software level. I think if they will try to do something, they will try to do something radical.
I think Google, or I guess Alphabet, is looking into the AEC industry. I mean, and it's Sidewalk Labs. They're talking about innovating the the city of the future or something like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is, this should freak some architects and some people out. Why is the technology company talking about, well, I mean, just to get them moving. Why is the technology company talking about the future, the city of the future? Architects design these buildings, they're the future of it. And, I'm hoping folks get moving because technology companies are moving into the space. They see a value, and they know the economic impact of buildings, and what it does to environments and all sorts of other things. And so I'm sure there's going to be a big movement in it. But like Amazon, they're looking at technology that can scrape the internet for like logos or like just design interests, so they can see. And this is for clothing, but they could look at interest and what people like, and then develop clothes based off of that, and essentially make things that practically based off of data what people would like. And you could look at the same thing when it comes to buildings. Like,
Yeah, but it's not only that. Amazon, I heard yesterday, someone told me, I did not check this information, but I really believe what he
mhm,
said. Amazon is partnering with a prefab company. So they are stepping in. They will deliver maybe in those cars the parts of the house and some robots that are going
yeah.
to assemble the houses, you know? So
Yeah, I mean, I see it. They have the money to invest, and they have the talent, to look at it. I mean, I don't know though. I mean, WeWork was supposed to innovate the space quite a bit, and I think they've done a lot of great things. But then, everything that happened to them, we'll see. I do think that there's an incredible value with the firms now. Just like what I mentioned with our firm, we have a lot of specialized knowledge when it comes to K-12 and what's involved with that. So there's a lot of complexities. I don't think that some technologies are some technology companies are totally aware of, and they can hire folks, but at the same time, it's like, you know, um, currently those firms that specialize in specific work practices are going to lead. I think are the best people to lead that innovation, but um, we'll
but
see.
most of the ones that won't embrace the innovation, what do you think is going to happen with them? That are not willing to learn, because we live in times where we need to become lifelong learners. You cannot
Mhm.
stay like without updating yourself, no matter
Yeah.
what you do, because you will be replaced by a machine sooner or later, right? So we need to have this skill to learn always new things. And
Yeah, for firms that aren't embracing it, I feel like, naturally they'll kind of fade away. But I've heard that forever. They just will. I think what's going to happen, and currently, and I've heard this too, is currently they can innovate, kind of behind everybody else. You just play catch up the whole time. But eventually, the technology and the innovation is going to be so quick that if you're not up there with everybody else or with the folks that are up there, then you're kind of out of luck, and you can't compete anymore with them because it's just the technology is too advanced or whatever, and you can't integrate it. And I'm sure that's going to happen. I don't know. There's a lot of variables that play in it. But I think for the longest time, folks have been able to keep up because innovation just doesn't happen that quickly. So just playing catch up isn't that bad. But I would imagine that eventually that's not going to be the case, especially if innovation happens at a much faster rate. And I'm seeing a cultural shift in companies that are focusing a lot more on technology and innovation. And naturally, that means their innovation pace is going to be sped up. And so we'll see.
yeah, but like when you have companies like have already innovated in other sectors and they have unlimited amounts of money, then it is not the same like when you are at a level where you don't have already innovation on other industries, right? Because this right now we lag behind other industries, like from a digitalization perspective standpoint, right? We are not a very digitalized industry. Like no matter where you, don't look about only the design, but most of the time it takes to build the building and to use it, right? So mostly it's manual, if you can say it like that. So and we are not efficient at all. You just look at all the projects that end up with costing twice or triple or 4 times or 10 times more than
Yeah,
starting.
we waste a lot too. That was one when I used to work in manufacturing, and I worked at Toyota, or a plant that Toyota owned or partly owned. I can't remember, but they, their every process was outlined. I mean, everything was down to the man. I mean, they knew what their loss would be, what their average loss is based off of just data. They knew how many seconds it took on average. Like, how many seconds does it take to do this specific workflow? Like, what does it take? And then you can optimize. You can put in to optimize that. Like, hey, taking this step out would make it a little bit quicker. When I got into the industry, none of that, like, it was such a mess. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why do we need to do this? Like, they shouldn't they already know this? Like, why is it so complicated? Because I without just being naive and not understanding anything about the industry, because I got into this industry on accident. I just happened to go to a class, and it ended up being like really, really cool. And I'm like, well, shoot, I could do this for the rest of my life. Like, it's way better than manufacturing. But like, naively, when I went in from manufacturing to like the first firm, I'm like, why is it such a mess? Why doesn't anybody talk to each other? And
Had the same expectations, right?
yeah, it was so crazy. Yeah, there was, and sometimes we would just have to. It's like reviewing drawings. Like, I would have to review drawings for just CAD stuff, and or like just drafting standards, and I would have to review them. I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, we can optimize this through, like, we could use machine learning or visual. We could use all sorts of things, but shouldn't they know the process, and they should understand what's involved? And I don't know. It was just so wild to me to think that nothing was documented. Nothing. There was just everybody just winging it. It seemed like, and it was just so crazy to me. And it's still that way. Like,
It was yesterday, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, the threat is right there. Let's touch a little bit machine learning.
mhm.
Tell me, what are you learning? How can you use it? And do you use it in any practical way, or it's still you still try to find a good example, a good study case?
So in a practical way, I'm trying to use it with some of the Navisworks clash detection stuff. So kind of like what I mentioned, I integrated that within the firm. So I was able to be involved with the entire setup and process that's involved with that. And so I was looking at tracking all that data, and starting to leverage that data and compare it to other information. A number of people, RFIs that happened on that project, and stuff like that, and then tie that into a machine learning model or some type of classification model, and start to understand, like, if we have this many clashes, or this many, or what variables involved cause the most clashes. This like, if we have 5 team members and we're doing integrated design, and the building's this big, what's the average clash? Is there an area that we need to focus on? I'm still working on a lot of those things. I wouldn't say that it's at a level of being a practical use, but I see a huge practical use behind it. But it's still being developed. I'm working on tracking clash information from folks that are leveraging clashes on projects, and then I'm also tracking clashes on every other project that isn't leveraging clash, so that I have a baseline to kind of move from, and so I can start to understand, okay, if we use truly show, like, hey, if we use clash detection on a project, we will reduce RFIs, we will reduce change orders, we will have a better integrated project that saves us money and the client money. So let's use it. And I think the data and a little bit of machine learning, we can use to at least make some predictions of the future or something. But a lot of that I'm still messing with. I've done some, like, little tests, using a little bit of linear regression just to figure out like if this or multilinear regression to figure out if these variables affect this one and see kind of what relationships between them. Some k-means clustering to see if there's relationships between different data. There's a lot of use. I'm sure there's a lot of great things, and I'm still trying to learn the basics. Machine learning on top of everything else isn't easy. And there's a lot involved, so I'm just taking it one step at a time and trying to see where it can fit in a practical way. So
I see. Uh, what about AI? Are you using also AI here?
well, AI is like an umbrella term, so it includes, machine learning and deep learning and everything else, and robotics and visual learning. But robotic, like in the AI sense, we're using the subset of we're using machine learning where we're trying to see where we have a group of people that are trying to find where we can use machine learning in a real way, so we can get budgets and stuff to start to look into it. And so we're looking into that. We're looking into some of the subsets of that, which, like neural networks and deep learning, which is very complicated. And as for like robotics and stuff, we're not looking into any robotic type things that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's some talk um, about like some of the contractors and the way that they use it. But at least within our firm, we don't do a lot with robotics. So, but yeah, in the AI sphere, we mostly focus on the machine learning portion of it because mostly what we generate is data. So we can start to, the idea is we want to learn from that information or make predictions or try to use
What
it
kind of software? What is your stack of software using here?
for ML. For ML, it's I use Python, and Python, is a I can't remember what they call it, a general language. It just pretty much means it's not specific to one thing. But anyways, you can use it for anything. And what's nice is by picking up Python, I could do, GUIs, and I can work on data scientists. But the community behind data science, like behind Python, and the data science community is huge. So pretty much everything that you want is there when it comes to Python, along with everything else you would want. So I can build a application all within Python. I can build a web browser or web interface or tool, and then use machine learning behind all that. So I would say Python's a huge one, and some of the packages behind that are like Seaborn, Plotly, Matplotlib, TensorFlow, some of those. Keras, and then some of the other tools I'll use that are a little bit easier is Microsoft Azure Machine Learning Studio, which if you've used Dynamo, it's an even more simpler version of that. You're just placing nodes on there, and then you can choose your algorithm or your machine learning model, and then start to test and run that and kind of see what happens. It's a really fun environment to start to see how those things work. And it gives you great visualizations. You can even host it up on the web so that people can put in inputs and then get if it's a classification model, they could put a variety of inputs, and then it would return a value, or it would return like where what it would classify. I think I have an example of like buildings. I have a post on LinkedIn that kind of talks about that, but that would be one of the tools. And there's so many great tools out there, but Python is probably my favorite and my go-to for practically everything. All I know, like if somebody asks me like, can we do this? Or if I'm like thinking to myself, I want to do this, I know like 99% of the time I can probably do it in Python. Like there's no barrier to me. I can just get in there and figure it out. And there's so many resources. It's no issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's so nice. And everything you mentioned, this is open source, right? Everything. It doesn't cost you anything to use any of these resources.
Azure ML, I think might, but it's free to use, and mostly I use it to test stuff out on and just see. But it's totally free. I think it might cost if you start to like really bump up. I think if you start to use like deep learning models and you're like doing a bunch of stuff, and but even then, I think it's free as long as you're not. And I think it might be running locally and it costs when you start to run it on their servers or something. I don't know, but I know Python totally open source. That's totally free. Like anybody can use that. There's no issue. Um, yeah, but yeah. So and that's not. I listed a couple of things, but there's thousands. I mean, I'm sure maybe there is thousands of tools out there. There's tons of things out there that are free and can be used. It's just a matter of like picking one and then just going with it. But if anything, I would recommend Python over anything.
Yeah, I see. Um, would you have a message or a recommendation for any company out there that did not embrace BIM yet, who's not trying to implement BIM at the organizational level?
If they're trying to implement BIM,
Yeah, they did not do it yet. They don't want. They are stubborn. Do you would they have any reasons to try change their mind?
yeah, I mean, there's a great benefit behind BIM, I think, and the information. I mean, I guess it all depends on what they're doing, but I guess it would just start with just understanding their process, understanding their workflow, and then what is involved with that, and then trying to show them where those technologies and the processes involved with BIM can benefit them. So I think, and this goes internally or externally if you're talking with a firm that isn't moving, or if you're working for one that is, or if you're just trying to get people to adopt things, you have to truly understand their problems and understand the reasons why they like doing it a certain way, and then understand their pain points, and then try to address those when you show them this new process or technology. Show them that, hey, this can do this, and it can address this issue for you, and it's a lot more efficient, and this is kind of what's involved, and this is the transition that you have to make to do this. But there's a lot of communication in it. Truly listen. You got to listen to people. You can't just hey, this is cool. Could do some really cool stuff. I mean, you got to understand people's pain points and communicate with them and listen to them. And that's how you can get great adoption, internally, externally, or just to get people to use the new technology.
What kind of resources are you using to read, learn more about everything, to upper your game in with everything?
I could spend probably an hour listing all
No,
of them.
just something in 1 minute.
Yeah. I listen to so many different things. I have a lot of podcasts that I listen to. I think a good one, is this one, obviously, and then there's a,
Thank you.
and I listened to BIM Thoughts for a little while. I haven't listened to them recently, but I think they're up and going again. There was a good one for Bluebeam. If you're an AutoCAD user, there's a great AutoCAD podcast out there. I can't remember what it was called, and I think he quit doing it, but I would definitely recommend listening to it. But books, I think the book I'm on now is because I have like a couple books that I read, like I'll sit down and just read them, and some of those are BIM ones. But the one I'm working on now is it's on my Kindle, but it's the hand or something. It's data science from scratch or something like that. It's a really great book, and I can share that after because I can't remember exactly what that title is, but it pretty much just talks about data science and some of that stuff. And then there's so many great blogs out there. Brian Mackey, Paul Albans, LinkedIn Learning. That's a huge one for me because I go to
Yeah.
the gym. I'll just put on some LinkedIn Learning and learn some stuff.
It helps even if you don't see the images, you just listen.
Well, usually when I'm at it depends on the topic, but generally,
Exactly.
if I'm at the gym, if I'm on the treadmill, I'll have the video there and I'll watch it. And then if I'm doing other things, then I'll pause it, and then when I can watch it again, I'll turn it back on. So it depends on the topic, but generally, I'll try to watch those every day at the gym. And that goes for podcasts as well, one or the other. But that resource is really great because I can just listen to it. It's always there.
Yeah.
The content's really, really great. Um, but man, there's a lot of stuff out there. I would say forums too. For anybody that's new, or experience or whatever, go out to forums and try to answer, or just look at it. You don't even have to. Don't expect to, or if you don't want to, don't answer it. Just try to answer it. If it is answered, try to answer it anyway. Try to figure out the question, because especially for us, for technology people, it's like, we generally get asked a lot of things, or like, how do you do this? And having and knowing how to communicate that is incredibly important. So, and forums are a great way to practice that. So you can get on there and you can reply to things, you can ask questions, you can look at somebody else's question and try to figure it out. And that's also a great way not to just figure out how to communicate to people and understand what's involved with that, but also to figure out how to learn a technology. I mean, people will ask questions generally because it's something that isn't easy to figure out in Revit or something. Sometimes it is, and those are the the simple ones. But the complex ones are generally somebody doesn't know, and it's not easy to do, and it teaches you to learn a lot. So I try to actually get on forums like once a day, but it's sometimes really hard. But I would say that's a really great way to learn, because it's always new questions, and those are the same questions you're going to get if you're in the industry. So it's a great way.
Yeah. Well, what kind of forums you mean? Mostly for programming or also for BIM?
Well, like, yeah, I mean, Stack Overflow is a great one if programming. I don't answer any questions really, because I'm not a programming expert. And there's some really interesting stuff. People really know their stuff out there, but it's a great way. I mean, you can go to Stack Overflow, look at a question, or mostly I use it to research. Like, I have this issue, I need to figure out how to fix it. But it's another way if you have time to go out and just look at random questions and see if you can answer them, see if you can figure it out. And yeah, Stack Overflow is a programming one, and then I'll use there's a lot of good BIM forums, but my go-to is just the Autodesk forum. I like it. I like it a lot, and and there's always questions on there. And I use the Navisworks one. I use the Revit architecture, and I think they have a Revit MEP one that I use. And there might be one other forum, but I use those three, I know for sure, on the Autodesk forums. So
Yeah, but this is mostly software. I don't think we have something that you can discuss about how you implement a BIM strategy in a company, or how the real big problems we face. Like about this, I'm thinking, do you have something like this, a resource like this?
yeah, that would be a variety of blogs. LinkedIn is a great resource when it comes to finding folks talking about stuff like that. And you can join some of those communities. So they're more BIM general specific and not software specific. And so there's a lot of conversations happening around those topics. And LinkedIn is a great resource because that's if you can connect yourself with the other industry professionals, then you can start to get those answers and get those ideas. But if I'm trying to implement something, or like Navisworks or some type of process, it starts with a little bit of research, and then just finding that stuff. I Google things all the time, so like it's just you know
I remember you started not too long ago a Discord channel. How is going on with that? Is some activity there or it's growing?
I don't know. It's growing slowly. I need to get on there more often. But yeah, I mean, it's growing, and the idea is that I'm hoping that a community will come. It's not going to happen overnight, and we don't have it's a niche of a niche, so it's not going to. It's just a matter of connecting the right people and getting the people in there that are going to be active. I try to get in there and share stuff. And just show people that things are happening in there. And so hopefully it'll grow. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It doesn't bother me. I'm just hoping to connect some folks. The one cool thing is there is some people I've connected with that I was able to help, and we were able to have some really great conversations and stuff. So it's been fun, and hopefully it grows, and more people can join and give their just have some conversations and stuff. So.
It takes time. It's not easy when you have a job, family, and you want to learn so much about it, and to manage that as well, to grow is not easy. It takes time, and it's not only that. I will tell you one thing. I don't think actually Discord is very, very appropriate platform for our industry. It's difficult to integrate Discord with all the other tools we have already at our disposal. Like on a working computer. I don't know if you have access, how is there, but the IT guy won't allow me to install Discord at work.
On computers, yeah. I guess it depends. Because Discord's open source, so it's free. It's a totally free platform, and I have like full like I can do whatever I want on it, like when it comes to permissions and bots and all sorts of stuff, where I think like Slack and some of those other tools, they charge you for certain things. So it was, and maybe it's not for AEC folks, but I've seen some really high growth when it comes to like YouTube channels and using Discord chats to facilitate that community. So I've seen some really huge, and generally that's in the programming industry and stuff. So I mean, I see why not. Like all those other industries are using it really heavily. It's just newer, it seems like, and it's more. And it's based around games and stuff.
Exactly. This is the first reason people will think about that,
Yeah.
And
I see no reason. I see nothing wrong with that.
No, is nothing wrong with it, but you don't have access like for YouTube or in a forum. You can just open a browser, go there, and actually you have Discord in the browser as well. But I don't know. This is my feeling. It's just my personal opinion. So I use Teams. I used Slack. Now I don't have any reason to use Slack anymore. I was using Discord as well. There are some programming groups there as well. It's okay, but I always end up mostly in the browser. So
yeah, for me, I love it. Like we use it. I use it for this, for the one I set up, and I use it for another one. When I have this this little podcast that we're trying to start, where my friend wanted to, and we're trying to figure it out, and we use it in there, and it's been pretty successful. I mean, I personally I love it, and I think it's great. I do think I did. Some folks had opinions about it, and for me, it's just like it's just a chat channel, just like anything else. And I think a portion to me, it's not much different than any other platform. I mean, um, um, and I do think there's again, I think it feeds to just a slower adoption to different technologies in the AEC industry. If there is issues with adopting different tools. But I mean, to me, if you get like Discord, for me, it's like it took me a second, but it's pretty awesome because you can do whatever you want in it. Like you can set up some really cool things. But yeah, I mean, what mostly pushed me towards it is that it's totally free. Like it doesn't charge any. It doesn't nothing. Everything's free on it. Like I can do whatever I want, set up as many servers as I want, and as many people can be invited too. So, but I'm hoping to build a community out of it and get folks to share information. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I don't really care one way or another because it was fun, So
Yeah, that's true. That
yeah.
makes sense. What is the podcast about you want to start?
I don't know. We're still kind of figuring it out. My friend came up with it, and I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'm sure I can fit that in my schedule. But it so he's an architect, and he's really good with mathematics and a variety of other topics, and so we wanted to just have a conversation. It was going to be more general, just about anything, because we had 4 people, but those 2 dropped off, so it's just 2. And so me and him, we're thinking more technology, more AC focused, and just general conversations, just random stuff, really. And I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but again, it's just to have fun. That's it. And we'll see. But so far it's just we've been just planning. That's it. And we use Discord to do all that. So we plan everything, and we can make calls on Discord as well, and we can communicate back and forth on certain things. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I hope you start it. Don't procrastinate too long on it.
Well, we're supposed to start Saturday. So most of our issues have been technology related because my friend was moving over to a new computer, and we had some issues with YouTube because we're doing live streams, and had some issues with, I guess you needed to wait 24 hours. But the first one's going to be Saturday, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just pretty much it's just a conversation between 2 guys, about some type of topic. That's it. So
yeah. How can people reach you?
LinkedIn, that's where I'm most active. Like if you're gonna reach out to me, that would be the best place to do it. I'll definitely, or at least try my best to reply. And then yeah, that would be the best one. I do have a YouTube, obviously, and then and that's the BIM coordinator. And then I do have a website, but I haven't been out there for a while. I still need to do a lot of cleanup, but that one's I think it's my name, DaltonGoodwin.tech, something like that. But yeah, I mean, just send me a note or add me, or send me a note on LinkedIn, and I'll try my best to get back to folks.
And the Discord channel, I'll just put a link in the show notes for the Discord channel as well, because
all right,
if there are people from AC industry,
that's more data science focused, and I think I was getting folks asking about a variety of other things naturally, but it's mostly data science focused. So yeah, anybody that is interested in data science and BIM, for sure join the group. It'd be great. So.
Well, Dalton, this was a wonderful conversation. Thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. It's been really great talking today. I've had a lot of fun. So.
I'm glad to hear that. Amazing.